Alright, we're gonna let it all hang out. We're gonna let it all hang out reading. We're gonna let it all hang out. Thank you for joining us. Present and future. Anytime. COVID-19, The Great Reset, written by Klaus Schwab and Theory Never Live. Forum Publishing and Digital Hawk holds no copyrights, is not monetized, and is practicing the Socratic method in hopes of movie live comment chats forever, present, or future timelines at any time. Thank you. Published in June 2020. Continuing on page 114. Pressurizing hyperbaric chamber in T minus 10, 9, 7, 5, 3, 2, achieving cabin pressurization. If you're just joining us, digital is not monetized. It's practicing the Socratic method. Hopes there are live comment chats presently or future timelines. Which is a happy Tuesday, it's 77 degrees Fahrenheit here in Long Beach, New York at 9:24 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you have vitamin D, a nice couple of meals to eat throughout the day. And thanks to my neighbor who loves me and everybody. This rainbow cake that is very beautiful. Thanks to Veronica Rainbow. I want to thank this Hawaiian Islands mug and the half and half I have in my new fridge. Thank you. An upgraded size. It's wonderful. I feel a bit more human, though Digital Hawk had a failed mission earlier and is bummed forever. Will disappear in flight through the nights as they become night, always becoming night, forever night. Digital drops in. Continuing from COVID-19, The Great Reset, page 114. 1.4.2. Global governance. Global governance is commonly defined as the process of cooperation among transnational actors aimed at providing responses to global problems, those that affect more than one state or region. It encompasses the totality of institutions, policies, norms, procedures, and initiatives through which nation states try to bring more predictability and stability to their responses to transnational challenges. This definition makes it clear that any global effort on any global issue or concern is bound to be toothless without the cooperation of national governments. and their ability to act and legislate to support their aims. Nation states make global governance possible, one leads the other, which is why the UN says that effective global governance can only be achieved with effective international cooperation. Source number 84. The two notions of global governance and international cooperation are so intertwined that it is nigh on impossible for global governance to flourish in a divided world that is retrenching and fragmenting. The more nationalism and isolationism pervade the global polity, the greater the chance that global governance loses its relevance and becomes ineffective. Sadly, we are now at this critical juncture. Put bluntly, we live in a world in which nobody is really in charge. COVID-19 has reminded us that the biggest problems we face are global in nature, whether it's pandemics, climate change, terrorism, or international trade. All are global issues that we can only address and whose risks can only be mitigated in a collective fashion. Top of page 115. But the world has become, in the words of Ian Bremmer, a G0 world, or worse, a G-2 world. The US and China. According to the Indian economist Arvind Subramanian, source number 85, to account for the absence of leadership of the two giants, opposition to the G7, the group of 7 wealthiest nations, or the G20. The G7 plus 13 other significant countries and organizations, which are supposed to lead more and more often. Spell, dumbass. Fucking algorithms, motherfuckers. Okay, blow your algorithms up with your freaking algorithm tailpipes, right? Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to page 115 freaking COVID-19. Supposedly published June of 2020 by Forum Publishing. DIGTALHAWK holds and owns 0 capital. He's practicing his credit method and hopes there will be a fertile live chat community in the future timeline. Thanks for all of you that have been joining us. Episode 9, I tried to read this entire book all in one shot. Didn't work out. Page 115. It's not a sideshow. DIGTALHAWK is not a sideshow. DIGTALHAWK is not a sideshow. Book a mission, get it right. Let's go. Read the fucking book. Sorry, it's rated R, no apologies. Sorry, not sorry. Let's go. Screw your fucking algorithm. Snowflakes, find a freezer. Bye. It's important. Somebody engineered this and wrote this bull. Can neither confirm nor deny that I exist or that I'm reading, because I can't confirm or deny. But I am not monetizing to hold no. I hold no copyright patents. This is for educational purposes only. Continuing on page 115, please. But the world has become, in the words of Ian Bremmer, a G0 world, or worse, a G-2 world. The US and China, according to the Indian economist Arvind Subramanian, source number 85, to account for the absence of leadership of the two giants by opposition to the G7, the group of 7 wealthiest nations, or the G20. The G7 plus 13 other significant countries and organizations which are supposed to lead. More and more often, the big problems besetting us take place beyond the control of even the most powerful nation states. The risks and issues to be confronted are increasingly globalized, interdependent, and interconnected. While the global governance capacities to do so are failing, perilously endangered by the resurgence of nationalism. Such disconnects signifies not only that the most critical global issues are being addressed in a highly fragmented, thus inadequate manner, but also that they are actually being exacerbated by this failure to lead. Failure to deal with them properly, thus far from remaining constant in terms of the risk they pose. They inflate and end up increasing systemic fragility. This is shown in Figure 1, presented on page 25. Strong interconnections exist between global governance failure, climate action failure, national government failure, with which it has a self-reinforcing effect, social instability, and of course the ability to successfully deal with pandemics. In a nutshell, global governance is at the nexus of all these other issues. Therefore, the concern is that without appropriate global governance, we will become paralyzed in our attempts to address and respond to global challenges, particularly when there is such a strong dissonance between them, short-term domestic imperatives and long-term global challenges. This is a major worry, considering that there is no committee to save the world. The expression was used more than 20 years ago at the height of the Asian financial crisis. Pursuing the argument further, one could even claim that the general institutional decay that Fukuyama describes in Political Order and Political Decay, source number 86, amplifies the problem of a world devoid of global governance. It sets in motion a vicious cycle in which nation states deal poorly with the major challenges that beset them, which then feeds into the public's distrust of the state, which in turn leads to these states being starved of authority and resources, then leading to even poorer performance and the inability or unwillingness to deal with issues of global governance. COVID-19 tells just such a story of failed global governance from the very beginning. A vacuum in global governance exacerbated by the strained relations between the US and China, undermined international efforts to respond to the pandemic. At the onset of the crisis, the international cooperation was non-existent or limited, and even during the period when it was needed the most, in the acme of the crisis, during the second quarter of 2020, it remained conspicuous by its absence. Instead of triggering a set of measures coordinated globally, COVID-19 led to the opposite, a stream of border closures, restrictions in international travel and trade introduced almost without any coordination. The frequent interpretation of medical supply distribution and the ensuing competition for resources, particularly visible in various attempts by several nation states to source badly needed medical equipment by any means possible. Even in the EU, page top of 117, excuse me. EU countries initially chose to go it alone, but that, of course, action subsequently changed with practical assistance between member countries and amended EU budget in support of healthcare systems and pooled research funds to develop treatments and vaccines. And there have now been ambitious measures which would have seemed unimaginable in the pre-pandemic era, susceptible of pushing the EU towards further integration, in particular a $750 billion recovery fund put forward by the European Commission. In a functioning global governance framework, nations should have come together to fight a global and coordinated, quote, war against the pandemic. Instead, the, quote, my country first response prevailed and severely impaired attempts to contain the expansion of the first wave of the pandemic. It also placed constraints on the availability of protective equipment and treatment that in turn undermined the resilience of national healthcare systems. Furthermore, this fragmented approach went on to jeopardize attempts to coordinate exit policies aimed at restarting the global economic engine. In the case of the pandemic, back to reality, I think. In contrast with other recent global crises like 9/11 or the financial crisis of 2008, the global governance system failed, proving either non-existent or dysfunctional. The U.S. went on to withdraw from funding from the WHO, but no matter the underlying rationale of this decision, the fact remains that it is only organization capable of coordinating a global response to the pandemic, which means that an albeit far from perfect WHO is infinitely preferable to a non-existent one. An argument that Bill Gates compellingly and succinctly in a tweet. Their work is slowing the spread of COVID-19. And if that work is stopped, no other organization can replace them. The world needs at WHO now more than ever. This failure is not the WHO's fault. Page 118. The UN agency is merely is merely the symptom, not the cause, of global governance failure. The WHO's differential posture towards donor countries reflects its complete dependence on states agreeing to cooperate with it. The UN organization has no power to compel information sharing or enforce pandemic preparedness. This is not real. It's Holocaust worship. Fuck out of my Holocaust. Fuck it. Fuck it. Please, please, blow me. Fuck off. Page 118. Remember. It's a hot mic. That's all that matters. Hot fucking mic. Get a hot fucking mic, bro. Damn, it's hot. Don't touch it. It'll burn you. Seriously. Fucking actually burn you. Don't touch the fucking mic. Electrified it. Don't touch my fucking mic. I have metal lips. That I grabbed it so I can actually talk. And you can't. Okay? I'm a robot, so fuck off. And no, you can't have a cotton candy and fuck off and get out of my brain. Strivers. I mean, like, seriously, get the fuck out. Go fly a fucking plane over here, land on my roof, and let me fly. Okay? Fuck you. Right? Send me a plane that will crash through my roof, and then fucking teach me to fly, and let's go. I'm trying to fly the 4-year-old into the sky, and I want to fly just by myself first, so I don't kill anybody. Right? Cool. Thanks, man. Fuck off. Busy. Fuck off. I got work to do. Cyrus. Fuck off. I got work to do. I do. This is work. This is God's work. Okay. I love this book. It's such a good blue book. I love this blue book. Not sponsoring anything. Not monetized. Practicing Socratic method. I can either confirm or deny that real, or that you are, or that you are like others. Do encourage good. Now, for every culture races pieces, that you have them, please send them my way. Push! You can find one. Go sit on here and talk to the birds. That's cool. White birds. Brought to you by Cookies. Well, anyway, as we were saying about this excellent book, thank you for wrapping it up in a nice little succinct bow for all of us. Your country thanks you. Every one of us. If we're still alive. Thanks. You, sir! I think. Don't know anymore. To be determined. You neither confirmed that or deny that DIGTALHAWK still has a brain or not. His brain broke today. His brain is broken today. And his heart is made out of stone. And it's frozen. Only wants to be alone forever now. He'll be alone with me and Bruce Lee. It's not gay, it's not weird. Don't go there. It's teaching me how to flow like water, okay? Think. I have a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids thing. I borrowed it off the set. Actually, I didn't borrow it. Who am I kidding? I just took it. They don't know me. No, I wasn't in the show, but I watched it as a kid. And don't ask me how I found it. I just did. Okay. Gotta read this book now. Save the whole planet by myself. I mean, unless you want to start reading, because I suck at this. Okay. Not modern times. Let's go. Page 118. This failure is not the WHO's fault. The UN agency is merely the symptom, not the cause of global governance failure. The WHO's differential posture towards donor countries reflects its complete dependence on states agreeing to cooperate with it. 9:46 p.m. here. DIGTALHAWK's brain cage, where there's nothing left inside of him at all. The WHO's deferential posture towards donor countries reflects its complete dependence on states agreeing to cooperate with it. The UN organization has no power to compel information sharing or enforce pandemic preparedness. Like other similar UN agencies, for example, on human rights or climate change, the WHO is saddled with limited and dwindling resources. In 2018, it had an annual budget of $4.2 billion, minuscule in comparison to any health budget around the world. In addition, it is at the perpetual mercy of member states and has effectively no tools at its disposal to directly monitor outbreaks, coordinate pandemic planning, or ensure effective preparedness implementation at the country level, let alone allocate resources to those countries most in need. This dysfunctionality is symptomatic of a broken global governance system, and the jury is out as to whether existing global governance configurations like the UN and the WHO can be repurposed to address today's global risks. For the time being, the bottom line is this. If the face of such a vacuum in global governance, only nation states are cohesive enough to be capable of taking collective decisions. But this model doesn't work in the case of world risks. They require concerted global decisions. The world will be a very dangerous place if we do not fix multilateral institutions. Global coordination will be necessary in the aftermath of the epidemiological crisis, for it is inconceivable that the global economy could restart without sustained international cooperation. Without it, we'll be headed towards a poorer, meaner, and smaller world. 1.4.3. The growing rivalry between China and the US. In the post-pandemic era, COVID-19 might be remembered as the turning point that ushered in a new type of Cold War. Source number 88. Belling out on page 119. Thank you very much for tuning in. This has been Digital Illustrator of COVID-19, the Great Reset by Klaus Schwab. Theory. Now, it's difficult to get through understanding this 118 pages unravel into my drafting table inside my mind and pouring over the data and calculations. What went on here? I hope that you ride the waves with me going forward in the future. I'm gonna go find something else to do. Something more fun. Maybe I'll go outside and race. And use my energies for speed. And not talk to anyone or care about anyone else but DIGTALHAWK. And no, I don't know if hawks fly in packs, whatever they call them. So, guess I'll look it up. Find out if they fly in packs. DIGTALHAWK is exhausted from reading COVID-19, The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab, and theory number 8, to give you a background on Klaus Schwab's. Professor Klaus Schwab, 1938, Ravensburg, Germany, is the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. In 1971, he published Modern Enterprise Management in Mechanical Engineering. He argues in that book that a company must serve not only shareholders, but all stakeholders. To achieve long-term growth and prosperity, to promote the stakeholder concept, he founded the World Economic Forum the same year. Professor Schwab holds doctorates in economics, University of Freiburg, and in engineering, Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, and obtained a master's degree in public administration (MBA) from the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University in 1972. In addition to his leadership role at the forum, he became a professor at the University of Geneva. He has since received numerous international and national honors, including 17 honorary doctorates. His latest books, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, 2016, in a world bestseller translated into 30 languages, and Shaping the Future of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, 2018. Not monetized, holds no copyright for Socratic debate and methodologies, only for educational purposes, read aloud by DIGTALHAWK, signing M to fly 5.